Now let us start writing the test script for this test case. Where exactly we write our code or the test script? Basically we write our code in Eclipse. This is the editor where we write our code. This is the place where we get the output, and we store our Java files, or we create a class inside the project. This is the project explorer. What you see is the Maven project. So let us get into Selenium project. In Selenium project, we have to go to the folder structure, source test Java. This source test Java is nothing but it's a folder under which you will be creating a package. Let me create a package. The package name is what? Session 1. Click on finish. Now inside this package, create a class. So what is the class name? Shall I call it as Union Bank, and we are dealing with the locator what? ID locator. Okay. Select public static void main string array argument. Now if I click on finish, how many lines of code we would be getting in this place? One is the package name. What is the package name? Session 1. Second one is class name, and third is this main method. This called as a main method. Now click on finish. See in the background how many lines of code you would get. It is basically the 3 lines. Okay. Now what is this line number 1 means? I'll tell you at the high level. In depth we'll be discussing in Java sessions. What is package? Package means it consists of either class or an interface. In this case, what it is consisting of? It is consisting of a class. Okay. Line number 1 is what? It consists of a package. It's a package. It means it can store either a class or an interface. In this case, it is storing a class. Now line number 3. What is this line number 3? It's the class. Public class Union Bank, whatever the class name which we had given. What is that class mean? Again, class is a vast subject to discuss. What is class? What is object? In Java, we would be discussing in detail. So at least let me tell you at the high level what exactly that class is. Class is nothing but it's a blueprint or a template, okay, where object instances are created. Okay, this is just a definition which I am telling you as of now to make you people understand at the high level. I'll just brief you just for today's session. For this first interaction, let us say class is nothing but it is holding the structure of your code. It's a very crude way of saying it, but to understand on the initial day, right? Just understand it is holding the structure of your code. What is this line number 5 means? Line number 5 is nothing but it's a main method. It's an entry point to your code. It's an entry point to your code. What is this public? What is this static? What is this void? It's a return type. Public is access modifier. This is a static method or non-static method. String array arguments. All those in detail again we'll be discussing in Java concept. For today's purpose, understand this is a main method. It's an entry point to your code. It means for a house we have the main door, right? It's the entry point to our house. The same way for any code, main method is the entry point to your code. Now the next part is what? Double slash means it is comments. Okay, so you need to write the comments so that you can understand the code what is written below. So to start with, shall we start writing the code directly or something else has to be done? Always make sure that you write the algorithm. You need to write the algorithm. Algorithm is nothing but it's an English sentence for your test case. What does the test case step says? Launch the application. Second is enter the amount, interest and tenure. Okay, then what it is? Get the output. Once you get the output, validate getting the output is our actual result. Now in validation, we are validating actual result with the expected result. Finally, close the application. Now you have written this step. What you have written here, this is, we are terming that as an algorithm or an English sentence. Now only thing which is left out for you is to write the syntax. Always make this as an habit so that it is easier for you to write the syntaxes. Okay, now how do I launch the application? To launch the application, I need to create a class. What is that class name means? Class name is nothing but Firefox driver. I wrote fire, control space is the shortcut key. Firefox driver equal to new Firefox driver. What does this mean? If I place the cursor here, C means, can you see C here? It means it's a class. Driver is what? It's a reference variable. New Firefox driver means what? It's called as an object. Let me tell you, Firefox is what? Class name, class. This is reference variable. Okay. New Firefox driver equal to new Firefox driver means what? It's an object. Okay. So if you see here how exactly always we need to write the code. First is the class name, then some reference variable. You can write driver, you can write your name, you can write anything, still it will work. Equal to new Firefox driver means it's called as an object. Okay, so again, as I said, class and object is a vast subject to make you people understand what is class, what is object. But as a simple analogy, to understand the first test case, I'll tell you one of the analogies so that you can understand what exactly the class and object is, at least for today's example. Supposedly, your manager goes for a meeting. Okay, he goes for the meeting around 9 o'clock, 9 a.m. and meeting lasts till 9:15. 15 minutes meeting. Okay, it's a simple analogy so that you understand easily. He was the only person, 9 to 9:15. Your manager was the only person who was in the call. And what client does is, client gives him 5 test case. Client gives him 5 test case and he says, I need the report evening. So what your manager will do with this 5 test case? Will he come back to cubicle? Will he come back to the workstation and start executing this 5 test case so that he can give the report during evening? Or what he will do? Will he assign to a team member? What he'll do is, will he execute on his own or will he assign to his team member? Basically, he'll be doing this. He'll be assigning to the team member. Okay. Now, what do you think? Your manager doesn't have the capability to execute. Your manager won't have the capability to execute this 5 test case. No, it's not like that. He has all the ability to execute 5 test case, but he won't execute. Instead, he'll give it to his team member. So same way, Firefox driver is a class which has all the ability to do the functionality, but it won't execute. Instead, it will create a new team member, and hereafter evening, who will take the report? Who will be giving the report? This team member will be giving the report to your client. Same way, Firefox driver is a class which has all the capabilities to perform the actions, but it won't do it. Instead, it creates a new team member. That team member name is what? Driver. Okay, for today's purpose, for the understanding the first test case, have this analogy. So hereafter, who is the stakeholder? Driver. Okay, now let me save this. So what is the next line? How do I launch my URL? I should say hereafter always I'll be prefixing with what? Driver. Driver.get. What is the URL? Let me open the test case. Copy this URL open quotes, close quote. Okay, once I launch the URL, close the observer, it will be like this. Okay, it will be like this. Okay, I need to maximize this page. How do I maximize the page? For that, again, it's a standard code. I should say driver dot manage dot window dot maximize. To launch, what is the method we are using? When I say driver dot something, whatever you get is the architectural code which has been already written to launch the URL. Okay, this is again all this method dot manage, dot window, dot maximize. Already architectural code has been written. To interact with Firefox, already architectural code has been written. That's what we have imported in here, line number 3. Okay, so what I'll do is, shall I execute this code? If I execute this code, what is the output you are expecting? It will launch the new Firefox driver, new Firefox, launch this URL and maximize it. Okay, so close the observer now, right click, run as Java application. It should launch the Firefox. It has launched the Firefox. Enter the URL, maximize. So what is the next point which we have? What do we need to do? What is the next the task which we have according to our algorithm? Enter the amount, interest, tenure. Enter the amount, interest, tenure and get the output. Okay, so to do that, what I'll do is, okay, let me just accidentally I closed the browser. Let me just open the browser. Okay, this is the URL. Now, whatever you see in a web page, this is pointing to what hereafter? What is the prefix? That is called as what? Driver. Okay, driver is nothing but it's your entire window. So inside this driver, we need to find what? Amount, interest, tenure. Click on the calculate, get this output. Now how do I do that? So any web page is consisting of, any web page is developed by what? It is developed as an HTML file. Okay, it has all the tags, everything. So when I write a URL here, it hits the server, gets the response. As a human, I know if I want to say amount, I need to go here and enter it. But how will a tool understand? Basically, the tool understand by its properties. Okay, so before getting into that stuff, you know what exactly the web elements are. Web element is nothing but, if you find a link here, it's called as a web element. The text box is called as a web element. Button is called as a web element. Calculate. This text box is a web element. This text box is a web element. Okay, link is a web element. What else the web element you might have seen? Drop down, check box. A simple sentence, what you see here is also a web element. So our Selenium automation considers each and everything on a web page as a web element. So to identify anything, it requires the properties of that web element. First, it has to check the properties of this element, then only I can perform some action. Basically, I need to enter what here? I need to enter 10,000. That is what the test case is. So to do that, first in this page, I need to find this text box and uniquely identify, because there are a lot of other text box also available. But I have to particularly check for the amount thing and enter the value there. So how will I do that? So to identify any element, we have to take the support of this 8 locator. What are those locators? If you see here, there are 8 locators: ID, name, link text, partial link text, tag name, class name, CSS selector and XPath. All these in detail we will be working, but today we will be identifying any element based on what? The property called as ID. If you're not getting, supposedly you go to a passport office. How does a passport office, you want to make a passport, how those officials will identify you? You have to give some ID to them. Basically, you have to give your Aadhaar card or you have to give your PAN card so that they can uniquely identify you. Same way, to identify this web element, we have to give the properties. So what we do in our what you call passport creation, basically we give our properties that is uniquely to identify. We give our Aadhaar card, PAN card, right? Same way, we have to give the detail of this element. So how do I get the detail of that element? So how many locators we have? Basically, we have 8 locators. So how do I get that? Where do I get those locators? For that, you need to open a developer tool. Very, very important. F12. Press F12. You can see a developer tool there. Okay, you can see a developer tool. This is called as inspect. If you see here, all the HTML tag will appear. Select this and select your element. Can you see here? The HTML details appear. What I'm going to do is to explain. I'm copying the HTML. Let me put it in a notepad. Closely observe. Put it in a notepad. There's a tag called as what? Input. Okay. This is one of the attribute. Attribute, when I say it's a properties. This is one of the attribute. There is another properties. Properties. When I say property, it means in a technical term it's called as attribute. Now we have 8 locators, right? Those are the standard locators with which you should be able to identify this stuff. So we have ID, name and all those things. In this case, where exactly the ID is? Can you see? This is called as attribute name. What is this? This is called as attribute value. Name is what? Attribute name, attribute value. Attribute name type, text is what? Attribute value. On press key is attribute name. This is attribute value. Size is attribute name, and whatever this 15 is attribute value. So how exactly you can identify the element? In this case, how exactly you can identify? What is the standard locator which is appearing for this text box? It is ID. So can I use ID? What is the another standard attribute which we have? Name. So for today's purpose, for this test case to automate, we are going to use what? ID. So I need to what you call basically copy this. I'll be copying this. Shall we start writing the code? How do we write the code? Driver dot what it is? Find element by dot what it is? ID. What is the ID name? Open quotes, close quote. Whatever you copied, loan text. If you see here, you can directly copy from here as well. Copy this. Okay. Dot. We have found that element. What we need to do on that element is another method. Send keys. Send keys means it will enter the value. We need to say 10,000. It's a string data type. We'll be entering 10,000. Though you see number here, when you put it in a quote, it's called as string. So application always accept this string. The output you get from the application is also a string. Now how do I inspect this element? Click on this. Click on this element. So shall I copy this? Copy and put it in where? Put it in a notepad. Okay. So which attribute shall I take? What are the standard attributes which I have? ID I have. Name I have. So which one shall I take? ID. Let me take the ID. I've copied the rate. What it is? Driver dot find element. Find element by dot what it is? ID. Open quotes, close quote. Dot what it is? Send keys. How much is the rate? 12%. Now how do I go about with the next what you call the element? Next element is again inspect this. Inspect here. What attribute shall I take? There are a lot of attributes. ID, type, on key press, size and name. I'm going to take the ID. Copy this. Driver dot find element by dot ID. Open quotes, close quote. Dot send keys. How much? It is 5 years, or what it is? It is 60 months. So 5 years means what? 60 months. That is what is available in the test case. Let me just see the test case. Is it 5 years or 60 months? Yes, it is in months. 60 months. Okay. Now, how do I deal with the next element? Select this. Select this element. Which attribute shall I take? ID is what? Button. What is the tag which we have? Input. So whenever there is a text box, the tag name is called as what? Input. Whenever it is a link, the tag name will be what? A. You can keep on understanding in each and every example how exactly we are going to deal with the tags and all those things, guys. Okay. Driver dot find element by what? Again by ID. Open quotes, close quote. What exactly we need to do? Dot click. Okay. Now closely observe. This is what we have written the code for. 10,000. Interest rate is 12. Month is what? 60. Click on calculate. Now I need to get the output of this. How do I get the output? Click on this. Select this. Okay. What's the attribute? It is ID. Okay. First we need to find that element and get the output. So once we click, what happens is it hits the server, gets the response. It might take some time. So shall I wait for certain time? Thread dot sleep. Shall I wait for 3 seconds? 3000 is nothing but it's a millisecond. Add the necessary exception. What is checked exception, unchecked exception? In detail you will come to know in the chapter exception. Okay. So thread dot sleep is nothing but we are waiting for how many seconds? 3 seconds. Okay. Now let us write for the output. Inspect. Okay. What is the attribute? EMI. First let me identify that element. Let me identify that element, then get the output. What it is? Driver dot find element by what? By ID. Open quotes, close quote. How do I get the output? Dot get attribute. Whenever you are taking the output from a text box, okay, you need to use what? Get attribute. Open quotes. Value. What is there? What exactly you want to get from the text box? The value. Okay. So semicolon. We have found the element. We got that value. Okay. What is the method to get the output? Get attribute. Now if I say control 1 enter, it will store in a variable. Okay. Very, very important. There are two ways to get the output. One is get text. You will be writing get text here. Otherwise, get text is used for all the elements except text box. Get attribute is used for the text box. Okay. Get text attribute is used for all the elements to get the output. There are two ways to get the output. Get text is used for all the elements except text box. For text box we use what? Get attribute. Inside the quotes, inside the braces, it is value. Now if I say control 1 enter, it will get stored in a variable string. And what is this? What is this? Shall I term it as actual result? Okay. Shall I put this as sysso control space actual result is concatenate actual result. Okay. Now according to the test case, what is the expected result? 222.44. So what shall I do? Shall I put it at the top? Let me just hard code. Okay. This is expected result. How do I store the expected result? String, declare the data type, exp underscore result equal to what? 222.44. Every line should end with the semicolon in Java. So now sysso control space, it will print system.out.println is nothing but it will print the output in this console. So what should we say? Expected result is concatenate exp underscore result. So how do I validate now? I have the actual result and I have the expected result. You need to write a if condition. If actual result double equal to, you cannot, can I use this double equal to? You cannot put the double equal to, because what is the data type which we have for the actual result? It's a string. What you get the data type from the application, the output is always a string. What you enter is also a string. Okay, so when you are using a string, you cannot use double equal to. Instead, you need to say dot equals. Dot equals what? Exp underscore result. If both are equal, what should I display in my result in my console? I should display it as pass. Sisu, what it is? Pass. Else, what it is? Sisu fail. Okay, now next is, how do I close the application? You need to say driver dot close. Driver dot close will close the entire browser. So what we are doing, we are finding in the driver is nothing but it's the entire window. In that window, where exactly our element is, send keys. We send the keys for three things. We clicked on this element. We got the output by using what? Get attribute value, and we validated that, and we are closing it. Now let me close the browser. Shall we execute the code? Shall we execute the code? Let me save this. Right click, run as Java application. Now closely observe, it should launch the browser, launch the URL, maximize, enter the amount, click on the calculate, and finally close it. So what are the CISOs which we are expecting? Line number 20, expected result 222.44. What is the next CISO? Line number 34, 222.44, our actual result. When both are matching, what should be the output? It is pass. And finally we close the browser. So which locator we used in automating this test case? ID. Okay. Now let me summarize the code. Line number 13 till line number 16, we are launching the Firefox, launching the URL, maximizing the window. Line number 19 and 20, we are declaring the expected result variable, and we are assigning the values based on our test case. Okay, in this case the expected result was 222.44. Line number 24, 25, 26, we are finding the element in a window, entering the amount, interest and months, that is the tenure. Line number 28, we are clicking the button, and line number 30, we are waiting once we click the button. Line number 33, we are getting the output from the application, that is the EMI, that is displayed in this variable. And finally line number 38 till 46, we are validating, we are comparing the actual result and the expected result. Line number 49, we are closing the browser. Okay, if you see, all the three CISOs output is available: expected, actual and pass. Okay.